So again, my name is Jen, and today what I'm going to be sharing with you are some of the experiences that helped me as a teacher in my journey to integrating technology in the classroom, and also on how I have improved the way that I teach and how I think I'm helping and contributing to the students, for my students to be prepared for the future. But before we proceed to that, allow me to give you a brief um, background about myself. Okay, I'm also an educator, just like most of you or all of you who are here right now. I teach in a university here in the Philippines, and I am also part of the educator community of Microsoft as an MIE or Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. I'm also a Microsoft Innovative Educator Fellow. I'm a teaching with technology trainer, and I'm also part of the board of directors of the Philippine e-learning society. Currently, I am working as the global director of e-learning integration for Cypher Learning. So the company is based in San Francisco in California, and what we do is we provide learning management system platform to schools, universities, and also business organizations. So for today, okay, the focus of our webinar or the theme for this session will be on these three things: looking back, looking forward, and getting ready. Which later on you'll find out why I call it why I use those three things as a focus in this webinar. So I hope also later that we can, engage to each other and exchange ideas and suggestions, especially on our topic. Okay, so I know that most of us here have probably noticed that the fast change in the education roadmap today, how it's fast evolving, how a lot of things are changing, and a lot of things are happening. From back then, we have come a long way already from the classroom that is as old as time to a modern classroom that we have today. So looking back decades ago, the classroom is so different, right? So let's try to use a little bit of our imagination here and try to imagine what a 19th century classroom looked like before. How do you remember your classrooms many decades ago or years ago, how it would look like? Perhaps you're thinking of something like this. I'm not sure if you can relate to this setting or setup of a classroom, but it used to be like this. If you can relate to the picture, things are done in a very, very traditional, structured way. I think I remember when I was still in first grade up to sixth grade, the school where I used to go would have almost the same setup. We have this wooden desk, and we are seated in this way. And also, all of the lessons are structured, even the way that we engage and the way we answer to recitations or participate in discussions are very structured. It's very old, very traditional, and also I remember when I was still starting as a teacher, I used to be the same. I'm very traditional also. I stand in class and talk for hours. I write on the board. I do a lot of talking, and my students are just there listening. I am like the spray and pray kind of teacher back then. So it's like I spray my students with information, and afterwards I pray that they at least remember something. It was like a one-way street kind of teaching that sometimes I talk too much and my students were not given a chance to talk at all, not unless it's a graded recitation. Until one day I realized it is not supposed to be that way. I saw it in their faces that they are bored, they're not enjoying the class. I myself gets bored with the way I teach and the way I deliver the lesson. Um, I realized that at that time, I'm now teaching a different generation, a student that belonged to the Generation Z, and that I cannot teach them the way that I was taught before, because a lot has changed already in education, especially these days. So what has changed in education from before up to this day? Okay, the way that the students learn today is different. Knowledge is just within their reach because of the presence of technology. That is why the way that we teach also is changing, or should I say, the way that we teach should actually change. And we need to adapt to the way that the students are learning. Also, the companies, the way that they choose or hire people to work in their organization has also changed. They're now looking for candidates with skills beyond what has been learned from the books and even in the classroom. The industry is highly technological now. So that is why we also need to look at that and consider that in the way that we teach now. Now, some of the common changes in the classroom today are the following. These are just some of the most notable changes. Online posting of grades and assignments, group projects completed through collaborative softwares, assignments are completed online and uploaded through classroom portals or learning management system. Students are now using cloud storage instead of flash drives or thumb drives or paper to store their work or their assignments or even their notes. Now, the teachers and the parents, the students, and all of the school administrators are also, the way that they communicate is also changing. They are now communicating via social media and different platforms designed specifically for education. So the classroom is also more technology enabled. The learning environment has changed. The classroom of today is evolving from lecture theater to library. The students have, I'm sure most of you can relate to this, that our students today have very short attention span. They need to be moving, they need to be engaged. Otherwise, they will just end up sitting there, being nice to their teachers, pretending to listen, but not really listening. Their mind is somewhere else, and they're actually not learning. It's because they get bored. So the lecture these days are becoming very short. Instead, the students are given like tasks where they can move around, where they can go to the library, use the computer and research. Okay? I myself, like this video that I'm showing you is from the school where I teach. I have witnessed how this school has transformed from lecture theater to library, to a school that's very traditional, to a school that's now more digital, and the school that has now embraced technology. But of course, it took them a while also to embrace this new teaching delivery. But realizing that this is one way to prepare the students for the future helped them a lot in embracing the new ways of teaching. Also, learning has become more mobile, and this university, because the students have access to gadgets and informations, and lessons can be made available from anytime to them, anytime, anywhere. A lot of school is already promoting mobile learning. Okay, so moving forward, um, classroom in the next 5 to 7 years would probably have these characteristics. These changes can become very, very aggressive in the coming years. And perhaps, okay, in an article that I have read, these are some of the major changes that might happen in the next 5 to 7 years. More changes in the layout and spaces and places of classroom. Even the layout of classroom now are changing. It's no longer the traditional look and feel of the classroom. You'd see a lot of, sometimes I saw classroom that's already using bean bags, and the students are not seated in the way that we are seated before, like we're lined up in one row and we just sit there. But now it's different. The entire space of the classroom is now being used. And also it's noted that in the future, or it's actually happening already now, the rise of virtual reality and augmented reality for education. There will also be a much more differentiated learning. The emergence of MOOCs and online learning for secondary education is starting to take place now. It's already changing. The change in the way that we teach, the way that classes are conducted is now really becoming more evident. Okay? But what drives these changes? What are the biggest drivers of change in education today? What do you think are the things that shapes the roadmap of education today? For me, in my years of experience in education and technology, I've come to realize that the biggest drivers of change in education today is LTI. Well, this is not the learning tool interoperability, but this is like an acronym that I coined. So what is LTI? Letter L stands for learner, technology, and industry. So these, for me, are the biggest drivers of change in education today. Learners of today are different. That in fact, according to some research, the Generation Z learners today are more resourceful. They're more adept and self-directed researchers. In fact, according to some research, 52% of them uses YouTube or social media for typical research assignments. 33% watch lessons online. So that's actually a huge change. But this is more evident now because the technology is available. Decades ago, it's not like that because we do not have the technology. So even there's also a research that says that the Gen Zers and the millennials spends most of their time, at least 41 or 22% of their time outside of school with computers or mobile devices. Perhaps if some of you has kids or children right now, you can relate to this. There are actually children or kids that before they even learn how to read or talk, they learn how to use, or they learn, at least they learn how to hold mobile phones or gadgets or tablets. I remember I have a niece who learned how to watching YouTube when she was 6 years old, and she learned how to play Minecraft when she was 6 years old. And at that time, she could barely read. So these are the kinds of students that we have today, and this is one of the biggest driver of change. Also, technology, because it's present. Okay, it's within our reach, and of course, the industry today is also one that's driving big change. So the classroom of today, which uses technology, the 21st century classroom, has these characteristics. And this is where technology also comes in. The classroom, the 21st century classroom, we have 21st century students, then we should also have 21st century classroom. So a 21st century classroom would have this characteristic. It's more student-centered. The teachers are no longer the major player, or should I say, not anymore the person who's in the center of the stage. The students should be given now more chance to own the stage and take charge of their learning. We teachers are now becoming the facilitators of learning, actually. The 21st century classrooms is also technology enabled, and we need to learn how to utilize this technology in designing instructions based on the technology that's available to us. 21st century classroom is also more adaptive, it's more personalized, it's more collaborative, and it's now promoting mutual respect. And this one, the last one, disaster-proof classroom, is like a personal advocacy that I have. The classroom of today should be disaster-proof, meaning that no amount of disaster should stop us from learning, because there are already technology available that will make lessons, learnings, information available to the students. So moving forward, another big driver of change, as mentioned earlier, in education is the demand in the industry. The skills that these industries require is what we need to develop and enhance amongst our students. These are now the trends that you're seeing now are actually the trends in technology investing today. And perhaps in the future, our students will be working in a company that's investing in this area. So there's social media, education and technology, enterprise software. So you have AR and VR gaming. So these are actually the investments. Companies are investing in this area now. And in the future, our students will be working on this companies that's focusing on this area. Also, a lot of organizations now are already investing in e-learning for employee engagement. They also invest in e-training, gamification to get their employees more engaged, mobile learning, video-based training, micro-learning, and personalized employee learning. So why are they doing this? They find this more cost-efficient, and they find this more effective in terms of training their employees. So imagine our students, when they graduate, they will also be exposed to this. And what we need to do now as teachers okay, is to prepare our students for all of those things. We need to prepare them for a really highly technological workplace. But the question now is, how do we do that? I know that probably most of you are, thinking that this is going to be very challenging for me, especially for teachers who are not um, that comfortable in using technology yet in the classroom. So what helped me, if you remember, when we started, I mentioned that I used to also be like the traditional teacher, the one that talks a lot in the classroom and doesn't do much innovation and creative thinking. But now that changed already. And there's a framework that has helped me in integrating technology and learning. So it's been a huge challenge actually for me, probably in some of the teachers also, and even schools. As an educator who started as a traditional teacher, this framework that I'll be sharing with you, the SAMR model, has helped me a lot as I integrate technology in my classroom. So there are a lot of frameworks actually that's available that we can use for technology, as a guide for technology integration in our classroom. But this one has really helped me a lot. And I must say this is probably one of my favorite technology framework. Okay? So this is the SAMR model for technology integration, which is popularized by Dr. Ruben Fuentedura. Probably some of you or most of you here are already familiar with this. So it stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. So these are stages. So the first stage starts with substitution and then all the way through redefinition. So SAMR model is actually a model that's designed to help teachers integrate, design, infuse, and develop technology-driven learning experiences for the students. So SAMR model is also like a model that we can consider to be addressing the first order application of technology, which is the substitution and augmentation. And the higher order or second order change would be the modification and redefinition. Now let's start looking at these levels one by one. So stage one, which is substitution. Okay, so this is like a traditional teaching practice, which is substituted with technology. So an identical task done before the presence of technology is now being performed through the aid of technology, but still there's no notable functional enhancement. It's just merely substitution. So an example of this would be like a pen and paper note-taking task, which is being substituted by bringing in laptops or tablets in class, or and using word processors, and then afterwards printing them. So really, we're just substituting the traditional way with the technology. And the second stage is augmentation. So in this stage, there is already a functional change and enhancement in the task. So the technology now starts to contribute to an effective and efficient way of performing a task. So there's already functional change. There's already an improvement that's happening. So let's use the same example of note-taking. So instead of like using just the word processor, now students and teachers are downloading note-taking apps with voice recording, probably, or dictation, or a capability to transform text to speech or to add photos and videos. Now, this kinds of augmentation is helping save time and resources. So there's no need to print anymore. The application that the students or the teachers have downloaded makes the notes more accessible to students. So note-taking task now is done in a quite quick and easy way. But however, at this stage, still, stage two, the teacher is still the center of learning, and he or she provides most of what the students need to do. Okay? Now, moving up one level higher, modification. So this is like the third step, or the third step, but the first step to transformation stage. So in this stage, teaching and learning is now transforming. It's starting to transform with the use of technology. Again, taking the same example of note-taking, students can now create digital notebooks that can be shared with their teachers and their classmates. So it's no longer just the mere downloading of apps and transforming those apps with photos and videos. Now it's getting to a much more higher level of transformation. So the notes can now be shared. The digital notebook can be shared to the teachers, and it can be shared to their classmates. The teachers can create digital notebooks where students can access their assignments and submit outputs in the same notebook. And then the teachers can also check it in the same notebook. Teachers can now provide immediate feedback in a different forms. It could be a voice or an audio feedback. So learning starts to become more student-centered in this stage as they begin to take charge of their learning, and activities begins to use technology to modify the outputs and starts to be more engaged to each other. Now, another one level higher, redefinition. This is the stage 4, wherein there's now a total transformation of the task that's being done previously in a traditional way. It's now transforming into a whole new task born out of the old task, which is previously it's not possible. It's not possible because of the absence of technology. The technology is not available. But now that the technology is available, we can now start changing, transforming the old task into a new one. For example, through an app or a software or any tech tool, a student can produce an interactive media, a media-rich output that before is not possible. Now, this output now can be in a form of a video, podcast, webcast, or blog or video blog that can be shared to other students for comments, for suggestions. So now there's engagement. And then the sharing is not only confined within the classroom. Sharing can happen even outside of the classroom. Even in social media, where people can provide more inputs, insights in an instant. So the feedback is instant. So the output that has been shared now also serves as a resource to others who are studying the same subject matter. So the students are now becoming knowledge constructor, not just knowledge consumer. That's what we want for our students. We need to have, or we need to transform teaching and learning in such a way that it creates an impact not only within the classroom, but also outside of the classroom, which before is not possible. Because, of course, because there's a limited access to technology. And now the impact of this can be global. It's not only within the four walls of our classroom. Now I'd like to share with you, okay, this is the diagram. Okay, so to illustrate, this is how it looks in a diagram. The enhancement stage, of course, is substitution and augmentation. And then the transformation stage is the modification and redefinition. How I use it before, when I do this, I do a SAMR exercise for when I prepare my lesson. So what I do is I create a table with 5 columns. You might be wondering why 5 when we only have 4 levels. So the first column represents the activities that I do in the class where technology is not infused. And then the other 4 columns represents each stage in the SAMR model. Okay? So this is where I think of how my activities can start from S going to R, from enhancement to transformation. And this is something that you can also do. So to give you an example, just to give you a much more visual example of how SAMR can be applied in your activity in the classroom. So for example, the activity is film viewing. We like this a lot. And I do this a lot before. I would ask my students to watch a film, and then the next activity definitely is a reflection paper. So a traditional reflection paper where the students would have to write their reflection. So how does SAMR come into play in this one? So the substitution would be from paper and pencil to typewritten and printed. So they no longer have to, like, type it, write um, their reflection in a traditional paper and pencil kind of way, but this time they can, like type it and print it. So how do we augment that from printed to online submission? Via email. So it's now a little bit of a higher level. There's no more printing happening. It's submitting online to the email of the teacher. To modify this, you can ask your student to either create a blog or a video blog of the reflection and share it in social media to get more feedback, to see to get more reactions to the audience. And then redefining could be the student can create another short film out of that film that they have watched, or a webcast or a podcast, digital storytelling. So the output then again will be shared, then generate analytics on the number of likes, comments, reshares. Then the comments given by the viewers can be used as another point for discussion in class. So do I do this in my own class? Yes, I do this in my own class. I started with, the same thing that I ask my students to watch a film and then they will write the reflection in a paper. Then I started thinking there must be like a new way of doing this. That's how I use SAMR. My students are now, when I ask them to like watch a film or listen to a music, the way that they produce their output is no longer in a paper and pencil way. I allow them to be more creative. I allow them to produce the output in the best way that they can, except for the traditional pen and paper. And you'll be surprised of the output that the students can produce. You will be surprised how creative the students can be. And those are the things that's needed in the workplace. Okay, another example that I could give you would be this one. Okay. So for example, you're a math teacher. I'm not sure if there's a math teacher in here right now. So, and I also learned this when I attended a conference. There's a math teacher in the US who's teaching geometry. So allow me to use the same example, but please don't ask me any math question. Okay. So the task could be, the activity could be a discussion in geometry, and the task could be solve a math problem on geometry using paper and pencil, which is a traditional way. I still remember back in the days where my teacher would say, solve this math problem. There's a long method and there's a short method. And then we could use like X number of pages trying to trying to find a solution to that math problem. Now, to substitute that, we use a scientific calculator. Augment that, use an app like GeoGebra, Excel, or any other math applications to use to solve the problem. Now, how do you modify that? You can express the solution by using interactive media, infographic, or create shapes with correct size based on the solution. So you no longer, the students will no longer have to show the teacher that this is like how I solve this. This is the X number of papers I use in solving this. But instead, they're producing an output based on their computation, based on the solution. Now, to redefine that, an example could be, this is just an example. Of course, you can think of other ways by which you can do this. Using Minecraft to create the prototype of a building or a house with shapes, sizes, and position of figures as a result of their computation. Then the teachers, they can facilitate a global collaboration of students who also uses Minecraft probably, and connect with the classroom who's also a teacher who's also teaching mathematics, and share these experiences. Now, this is something that cannot be done before because technology is not available. But now that the technology is available, we now have like a way to redefine, to change the way that the students are producing their output. It's more of realistic now, or more of something that we can apply in real life. Now, if you're using a learning management system in your school, this is how you can apply SAMR. Okay, the substitution level is where you use the LMS as a substitute for printed syllabus or printed handouts or textbooks or a paper and pencil assignments. Or you substitute your learning management system for a rubric or a grade book or a reading material. Now, if you want to level up the use of the LMS and move to the augmentation level, now the LMS can be used to organize content, to do classroom management, like checking of attendance, planning for the seat plan or a seating chart, use it for calendaring your activities, and use it for announcement. So and then maybe management of resources and instructional materials like your lesson plan or your learning path. So the resources from different source are also integrated. So that's augmentation. And then to modify the use of a learning management system, another step higher. So you utilize your LMS for blended, flipped, or fully online self-paced delivery of instruction. So the lecture can be online if it's flipped, and then the activity can be done in the classroom. So now you are modifying the delivery of the classroom using your learning management system. Now to redefine that, the learning management system in the transformation stage should enable differentiated instruction and adaptive learning. So assignments can also be redefined wherein the students would be allowed to transform the way that they produce an output. For example, screencasting, and then you upload it in your LMS. So this is how you can use SAMR when you're using an LMS in your school. Now, the big question would probably, what you have in mind right now is, how do I get started with all of this? After Jen has provided us with an example and a discussion about SAMR, how do I get started? How do we get ready as teachers so that we also get our students to be ready for the future? So we need to get started by thinking now of the current activities. Think of the current activities that you're doing in the classroom where technology is not infused yet. And then do that exercise that I shared with you, where you create tables with 5 columns and write down the activity that you're doing where technology is not infused, and then gradually improving that with the guide, with using SAMR as our guide. We also need to start rethinking of our role as educators. By that I mean we no longer monopolize the stage, or not really monopolize, but we are no longer the star of the show. We need to make the students the star of the show now. We need to help them take charge of their own education. They need to start we need to start redefining the way that we teach so that the students would also redefine the way that they're learning. We want our students to become more self-sufficient. As teachers, our role changed by becoming the facilitators of knowledge. We spark the ideas, we share the knowledge to the students, we allow them to create, and then we guide them um, all throughout their learning stage. So it's not because there's technology we would think that we will be replaced by technology. That won't happen. We will always be there as teacher. It's just the role that's going to change. Okay? We will now be the teacher who spark the idea so that our students can start creating. No more spoon feeding if we want our students to be future proof. Okay? Our students need to be more self-sufficient. We need to allow them to discover, to create, to think more critically, and to become more creative. They need to be able to take charge of their own education, and we need to help them to learn by allowing them to do something. They need to learn how to be more independent and reach the highest level in SAMR, which is transformation, redefinition. And these are actually the skills that they would be needing in the workplace these days. So allow me to share this table with you. This is just a comparison of the 21st century skills and the skills needed in the workplace by 2020. So this is like a product of a research from Institute for the Future. So on your right side is the future skills by 2020, and on the left side is the 21st century skills of the students. So we need to be creating students that are empowered so that they can adapt to the future work skills. And that's where SAMR comes in very handy, very useful. Okay. So how to get started? I have a very simple tip on how to get started with this. Start by evaluating where you or your school is at now in terms of technology integration in the classroom using different international standards. Okay, so there are a lot of rubrics or standards by which you can that you can use to evaluate where your school or you yourself is at now when it comes to technology integration in your classroom. Are you in the pre-emerging or emerging stage where you're just starting to investigate, raise awareness, and start to plan on how to use or technology in your classroom? Or are you in the stage where you're now starting to try to do some trials and starting to be more engaged? Or are you already in the extending stage where technology is effectively aligned in the process and practices of in the classroom or in the school? Or are you already in the stage where you start empowering students and your fellow teachers, wherein technology make new ways of learning possible? So it also represents SAMR, substitution, augmentation, and redefinition. So this is very important. This will help you determine where you need to start when it comes to integrating technology in the classroom, which in return will help our students to be more future and work ready. Another tip I could give you would be this: don't force it yet. If you're not comfortable, or if you know someone or a colleague of yours that's not comfortable in using technology in the classroom yet, don't force them. Let them start with simple things. Let them start easy, or start simple, start easy. Then gradually moving up to a higher level. You can even start with substitution, just to test the waters, just to test if this will work, until you reach the part where you're now redefining and transforming the way that you're teaching and transforming the way that the students are learning, which they will carry when they graduate and when they finally start working. They will remember all of the trainings that we have done for them in the classroom. That's one way that we could get them ready for the future. I know that this could be challenging, but challenges are actually what makes learning fun, especially when we start to overcome those challenges. And then, of course, lastly, I'd like to leave you with this quote: getting the students to be ready for the future and be part of a highly technological workplace is a huge challenge. But it can be done if we prepare and if we embrace a growth mindset. And with that, I thank you for listening to me. I will now give you time to maybe ask question or share your thoughts. We will have like a few minutes to do that. Do you have any something to share? Hello? Okay. If you don't have any question, I think that that ends our session for today. I hope that I was able to share even a little bit something to all of you. So you can reach me via. Oh, sorry. There's a. Thank you, William. So if you guys have any questions, you can send me an email. My email is jen@cypherlearning.com. Let me type that. Okay. It's jen@cypherlearning.com. Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Thank you.